So I sold my stocks and I bought a 35-acre farm with a house. But as an accountant, I haven't really spoken about the finances behind this and if this was actually a good idea. So today, I'm going to use my 10 years of experience with money to tell you, was this the ultimate trade? To trade my stocks for a farm, the most land I've ever had. Now, a lot of people think that the only way you can have security is by having a 401k and having some corporate job, but that's not true. Now, I'm not gonna tell you to sell all your stocks and buy a farm like I did, but I'm just gonna show you the raw numbers so you see exactly what I saw. So I started investing into the stock market when I was about 19 years old. Buying and selling. And I started because obviously I wanted to get rich quick, like most of us kind of want to do when we're pretty young. And I risked a lot of money, but in reality, I broke even, so I didn't lose my money, thankfully. However, though, the big thing about the stock market is that everyone says, if I had just put $10 into Apple 40 years ago, I would have had like $10 billion. Well, 40 years ago, I wasn't even born yet. So I can't really do that, you know? But I got smart and I stopped risking my money in the stock market and I started putting it into the S&P 500, which is still the stock market, but it's a lot less risky. And I was promised basically about 10% returns. Now you might think 10% return is pretty awesome. And I thought so too, because if you invest just $50,000, well, in about 30 years, you're gonna have about $1 million. And doesn't that sound awesome? But that's not the full truth. And that is what I've learned. They tell you something, but it's not the whole truth. So here's what they don't tell you about. They promise you 10% in the stock market, and it sounds attractive because in 30 years, you'll have almost $1 million. But they don't mention taxes, inflation, and also the brokerage fees. Okay? So first of all, you can't avoid taxes, even if you try. And if you do, you might go to jail. That's what they say, okay? But let's just pretend you have to pay taxes. And taxes are usually gonna take about 2%. So automatically, you're left with just 8% from your 10% return. But that's not all, because inflation is a real thing. So if you don't know what inflation is, if you remember when a bag of Doritos used to be 25 cents and now it's $1, maybe even more expensive, the answer is that is money losing value. Things get more expensive every single year. So inflation is going to be about 3%. So now you're left with just 5%. But that's not all. Brokerage fees are going to be about 0.03% all the way up to about 2%, depending if you want some fancy manager. I don't want that, so I just paid about 0.03%. So in reality, my real return in the stock market when I did all the math and I broke it down, well, it was only about 4.97%. And that's how all of my dreams basically shattered. That's when the truth started to come out. When I realized, well, I won't really have $1 million. What I'm gonna have is really just about $400,000 after 30 years. And then guess what? That's not even the worst part, because things get more expensive every single year. So here's something that's crazy, okay? This right here is a goat. You can see it. Goats provide milk and also meat. I'm not gonna eat her. Don't worry, okay? But as time passes in the next 30 years, our food bill is gonna go from $600 a month to potentially about over $1,000 because things are going to get a lot more expensive. Back here, what do we have? A house. The average person right now is spending about $1,800 a month on rent. In the next 30 years, that's going to be more like almost $4,000. Now, the crazy thing is gonna be, you're gonna be old, so you're gonna have to go to the doctor, maybe. If you don't want to, you don't have to go. But imagine how much more expensive insurance and doctor stuff is going to be in the next 30 years. Things are going to be really expensive. So that $400,000 in real money, well, I was probably gonna spend it all in a couple of years. But that isn't even the worst thing, guys. The worst thing is not the inflation. the taxes and that your money's not really worth what they say it is. The worst thing is the volatility, because I've always thought of myself as a conservative person. I don't want to take a lot of risks. So that's why I put my money in the S&P 500. And you know when they say the stock market is always going to bounce back, it's always going to return, you don't have to worry, but that's not really the full truth. And here's what they don't tell you. In reality, let's say my wife and I, we want to retire when we're 65 years old, and we've been investing our hard-earned money, but just before we can retire, the stock market goes down by 30%, 50%. That's called volatility. Things can go up and things can go down. But here's the tricky part. Yes, historically, the stock market has gone up and returned from downfalls over and over again. But sometimes it can take 1 year, sometimes 5, sometimes 10, sometimes 30 years. It's a long time, huh? So imagine us waiting 15 years or 20 years for our stocks to finally come back up. That is not something that we actually want to do. And you know what you can't do while you're waiting for the stock market to go back up? You can't quit your job. You have to keep working because you have to worry about the insurance, you have to worry about the bills going up and all the other stuff. So volatility is one of the craziest things. So if the stock market isn't what it's made out to be, the returns aren't really that great, it's less than 5% in reality, then what do you put your money into? Is it gold? Is it silver? What is it, okay? Well, I chose two things, farm and food. But I'm gonna talk about the first one first. So why exactly do we choose farm? Now, I'm not gonna lie to you because you can just always just look this up and find out for yourself. But it's not like we're gonna be a millionaire by doing farming. In reality, the return is really about 6%. And after the fees and inflation, all that stuff, you're looking at around maybe 2 to 3%. So it's not really that much attractive than the stocks are. However, there is a massive difference when you do own a farm. And here's the main thing. All the things that you're going to be worried about going up in prices tomorrow, in a farm, you can produce them. So for example, right here, we just have some tomatoes, some sweet potatoes, and a few other things right here in this garden bed. In the future, when food goes up in prices, we're not really going to be worried about that because we produce all of our food. Well, we're heading there, okay? So by that time, we're gonna be there. That's the first thing. We won't be worried about Doritos going up in price because we can always grow our own corn and make our own Doritos. Number two is housing costs. Housing costs in the future is guaranteed to go up, okay? Things are going to get more and more expensive. However, when you already own land, you don't have to worry about the prices going up over here or the prices going up over there. But here's the best thing about owning a piece of land that produces all the things you actually need. It's called volatility protection. If tomorrow the real estate market basically crashes and this farm is only worth $1, who cares? I already own it. I already have it. It already makes me all the things I basically need it to make me. So it's not like the stock market where inflation is going to eat up all your stuff. Where volatility, you can have money on paper, but tomorrow you can have a lot less and you have to keep working. With a farm, you have a lot more protection. You have a lot more security overall. And that's why we actually chose this investment class. But let me show you guys around so you can actually see what I'm talking about, okay? Over here, guys, I've shown this a ton of times, okay? But over here is our chicken coop. And in our chicken coop, we get two things. We get eggs and we also get meat. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. So check this out. In here, we actually have a broody hen. So you don't want to play with her. Broody hen means that she's actually trying to hatch out some eggs. So every single day we come and we collect eggs. This is one expense that we no longer have to worry about, okay? So this is a big expense basically covered. Over here, like I showed you guys before, we have goats. I'm not gonna eat them, but I might eat their offspring. And that's already meat. And we're gonna get ewes, which is basically just like some sheep. and that's also going to provide for our family. So eventually, the land you're seeing here, it's more than an investment. It's security. Sure, the stock market can give you a dividend, but this gives you ultimate control. Now, I did tell you guys that we're also investing into food. So if you want me to make a full video about how we invest into food, comment down below food and subscribe to the channel so you actually get updated when we actually post that video. See y'all later.